It's not the amp, dumb. Guitar players drop thousands upon thousands of dollars on new tube amps in search for better tone, and yet fail to realize one simple fact. The thing that actually affects their tone the most is the thing that they can't even see. Look, I get it. Amps are beautiful. They're big, they're shiny, the tubes glow in the dark, and they're really expensive. Surely they must make the biggest difference because they look so damn impressive. And you can turn the knobs and it changes the sound. I mean, just listen to the gigantic difference between a 5150 and a Mesa Dual rectifier. Now let me play you the second amp. But Glenn, that was the same clip. Yes, it was. And I switched out the amp halfway through on both examples. Did you even notice? Here's the truth. I've dropped tens of thousands of dollars on new amps over the years, only to realize they weren't getting me the results that I'd been looking for. Let me help you avoid making the same mistake. I've got to thank the viewer Caddy's Jam Cave for inspiring this episode. I've always said that there's no such thing as a stupid question, but unfortunately, people can pack several truckloads of ignorance into a paragraph.
Bah! All this speakers is the most important thing to improve your tone is a half-truth. You compare a 5150 to a dual rectifier, for example, and that makes a massive difference in tone even when comparing the same speakers. I'd say 40% amp, 40% speakers, and 20% to other variations like mic position.
Depends on what you're comparing, e.g. a Marshall 4x12 greenback cap sounds very similar to a Mesa 4x12 V30 cap with a bit less sizzle. Otherwise, very similar. Same with greenbacks. Very similar with a bit more going on in the high mids, highs, etc. I feel that you ignore the significant difference when you get between amps and are obsessed with only speaker variants, which doesn't tell the whole story.
Caddy, while I appreciate you attempting to challenge me to a battle of wits, a word of advice. Next time, don't show up unarmed.
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look, it's just a flesh wound.
You'd say 40% amp? Based off of what? What you pulled out of your ass? Did you bother to record anything? Did you take any frequency response graphs? Or is all this just based off you fucking around with a few amps in a room somewhere?
These go to 11.
I don't know about you, but I can't remember what something sounds like 10 seconds after I hear it, much less if I take the time to switch out the amp or the cabin. Simply put, if you don't do direct recorded comparisons, then it's impossible to actually tell the difference based on memory. And even if you do make direct comparisons, not playing them back immediately one after the other can also skew your results. Let's play that opening riff one more time, this time with labels. Let's be clear here. That's the exact same clip where the only variable is the amplifier. Unfortunately, when it comes to guitar advice, we usually get online opinions based on memory and not evidence. I made a statement a few months back on Facebook stating how much the 5150, the dual rectifier, and the Soldano all sound alike. Well, you'd think I'd spat in somebody's religious text based on the responses I got. They lost their freaking minds! Okay, so I'd like to offer a heartfelt apology to the online metal community on Facebook, because how dare I suggest that two amps that ripped off the Soldano design might sound similar to it.
It's crazy talk. You're crazy.
I get it, they look different, but if the angry mob would chill the fuck out for 10 seconds and watch the video called What Matters Most with a Guitar Tone, they could literally see and hear the principle in action. And don't give me this bullshit about, I change amps in my profiler and I can hear a difference. According to a source, some manufacturers tend to add a little bit of sweetening EQ to the Sims, so you'll hear a bigger change than you would with the real thing. That way their customers feel like that the purchase was worth it. But when you start working with the real stuff, and more importantly, start recording with it, the differences we think we hear tend to be quite a bit smaller in reality. Much like what your girlfriend experienced once she removed your pants. Apparently though, I've still got my work cut out for me. Despite me doing several tests and sharing my results, I still get genius comments like this.
I can't believe you're preaching the same speaker difference each and every video, when clearly the biggest sound factor is the amp head, not the speaker.
This is why misinformation is so difficult to eradicate. It takes no effort to spew bullshit online, but it takes me several days to construct a test, shoot a video, edit, do the title and thumbnail, and finally release it, which will be ultimately dismissed by the people I'm trying to help, because despite the evidence, nobody wants to be told that they dropped $3,500 on an amp that they didn't need. Never discount the effect of pride versus facts. because most of the time pride is going to win. And guitar players are really stubborn. I'm almost at the point where I'm gonna have to make a video where I rub their noses in it. See, there's almost no fucking difference. You're gonna save your money now. Hey guys, real quick, this noise-free episode of Spectre Sound Studios is sponsored by the good people at Morley, makers of the hum removal toolbox. This is available for a limited time over at Sweetwater and consists of 2 items that get more use in here than just about anything: the Hum Eliminator and the new Hum Note. I use the Hum Eliminator on critical sources like my voiceover going into my camera. This is the one place I absolutely have to get it right, and Morley ensures that the problem is fixed before I even have one. They've also got the new Hum Note, an inline power solution for guitar amps. Put it between your wall power and your amp and your noise problems go bye-bye. If you're in a touring band, this is the answer you're looking for because it works on everything from 100 to 240 volts and 50 or 60 hertz. You can get the hum removal toolbox over at Sweetwater right now for only 168 bucks. That's 50 bucks off from buying the 2 pieces individually. If one doesn't fix your problem, the other will. Get yours today before they're gone.
Now back to the show.
Now, the part of all this that drives me absolutely up the fucking wall is that creating a test for this is easy and affordable. If you've got access to a few amps or you can borrow a few, you can do this test yourself. You're just gonna need 2 critical things: a reamp box and a copy of Room EQ Wizard. Well, for the reamp, I recommend the Signal Art as it's the best I've come across since I started doing reamping back in 2005. And Room EQ Wizard is absolutely free. You can download a copy, run some sweeps through your gear, and take your own measurements. I know, that sounds like some effort might be involved, and it's far easier to type some opinions into your socials. Well, I can totally hear a difference. Yes, you heard a massive difference between your amps, very good. But this is also exactly the line of reasoning that gives us sightings of Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and Jesus on a piece of toast.
Walk, Timmy! He walks! Whoa! Yes, praise the Lord!
However, if you take 10 minutes, make your own test, you can wind up saving yourself thousands of dollars. That nice shiny new amp that you've been drooling over, it might not be the magic bullet you've been thinking it is. Once upon a time, I was gassing hard for a frameless Cobra head that I wanted so freaking desperately, because some of my online forum friends were getting amazing results with theirs. So I went out, found one, dropped a ton of cash on it, and guess what? It really didn't do what I was hoping it would do. In fact, you could say it was fairly close to what I already owned. But opinions are worthless. Evidence is what counts, so let's make a test. I've assembled a bunch of gear that I'll use in a typical recording setup: a Maxon overdrive, a 5150, and a Mesa dual rectifier, because according to Caddy's Jam Game, they sound so different from each other. I've also got 2 cabinets, a Harley Benton vertical 2x12 loaded with greenbacks, and a Palmer horizontal 2x12 loaded with creambacks. Microphones are from Lewitt, and I'm gonna show you guys my secret weapon guitar mic in a few minutes that has become my absolute favorite on cabs. And to top it off, we're using a Dynamount, a robotic microphone device, so I can show you guitar players just how much of a difference microphone placement matters. Because the guys making these statements need to stop thinking like guitar players and start thinking like engineers. Actually, it'd be great if they just started thinking critically, but yeah, that's really gonna happen, isn't it?
Hail, Messiah! I'm not the Messiah! I say you are, Lord, and I should know I followed a few. Hail, Messiah!
Now, here's an interesting picture I found online the other day of Edward Van Halen in the studio. Someone had taken the time to meticulously label almost every single item in this picture. But it also illustrates exactly the kind of ignorance that we're up against. We've got the guitars, the amps, what type of wood the guitars are made of, what power tubes are in the amp. I mean, somebody really put some time into researching all of this, except for the important part. What speakers are actually in the fucking cabinets? Did you bother to find that out?
Stupid! You're so stupid!
So why do I keep going on like this? Because the speaker is the final filter your sound goes through before it's picked up by the microphone. Now, how many of you have played around with a distortion pedal and an EQ pedal and how they relate to each other when placed on opposite parts of a signal chain? If you place an EQ before a distortion pedal, you get a little bit of a change. If you place an EQ after the distortion, you get a much bigger change. Jim Lill's outstanding video, Where Does the Tone Come From in an Amp, goes into great detail about this phenomenon. I'd highly recommend checking it out, and I'm a huge fan of Jim's work. If any of you guys would like to see me collab with him at some point, be sure to drop by his channel and leave a comment asking for it. Now, what does all this have to do with amp versus speaker? Well, in any guitar setup, the amp goes before the speaker. No, really. And in simplest terms, the amp is the distortion and the speaker is the EQ. It's an extremely complex fixed equalizer that filters everything about your guitar signal. Every tube, every knob, every gain stage, tweak, bias, pickup, and string vibration goes through that filter. It is like gravity and it is utterly inescapable. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to demonstrate the real difference between a 5150 and a dual rectifier. We're going to go through the Harley Benton vertical greenback cab. It's an absolute killer piece of gear that's super affordable and sounds fantastic. I love the Harley Benton cabs because they won't break the bank and they come in several varieties, including vintage 30s and greenbacks, as well as creambacks. And keep in mind, there is no post EQ going on here. This is all just the amp, the cab, and the mic. All right, let me break it down for you real quick. Let's try 5150 versus dual rectifier. Same mic, same everything in the mix. Let's hear just how big of a tone shift we're actually getting. Now, I doubt if you were listening to it, you really would have been able to tell. Is there a tone shift? Yes. Is it gigantic? No. Not as much as Caddy's Jam Cave was saying, that's for sure. Let's take a real quick listen here. Here's the dual rectifier slowed up. And that's 5150. It's crazy just how similar they are. Yes, there is a difference, but it's not a massive difference. And when we measure it, we can see the differences, what's going on here. If we take a look, the red is the dual rectifier and the yellow is the 5150. And we can see they start to deviate from about 1 kilohertz to about 200 hertz, with the rectifier having more bottom end and lower mids. But as we move into the upper mid range and into the treble end of the spectrum, the 5150 tends to dominate there, and it's just by a couple dBs here and there, maybe 3 dBs at one point. But you notice they match each other up and down the spectrum perfectly, and that's because we haven't moved the mic or the speaker or anything like that. So that's the difference the amp is making. Keep this in mind because we're going to swap out the speaker in a sec. Now, before you guys go typing into the comments, Glenn, you tweak the EQ to make the amp sound the same. Consider this. If tweaking the EQs makes the amps sound alike, then why would you insist on spending thousands on a new amp that you might not need? Couldn't you just tweak the EQ as well? Now, let's try the exact same clip, but this time we're going to swap out the speaker and the cabinet. Once again, no amp settings are going to change and the performance is the same. And this time we're using the Palmer 2x12 loaded with creambacks. Palmer also makes some amazing cabs with options for vintage 30s and greenbacks as well, and you can get them with a removable backplate too. So let's compare the speakers back to back. First, we're going to play the greenbacks, and then we're going to switch over to the creambacks. Check this out. Now that's a much bigger shift, and what's more, this isn't just speculation, this is something we can measure. I took a couple measurements here of the greenback and the creamback. The greenback is obviously in green and the cream is the other colored one. I'm partially colorblind, don't ask me which one. But it's pretty cool because we can see all kinds of deviations going on, far more than you would get from amp to amp. Look at this, the greenback is just like dominating at 650 hertz, and we're at like 92 dBs versus 87. So we're talking almost a 6 dB difference there, maybe give or take a half dB or whatnot. Same thing with the greenback at 2.5K, that's 107 versus 99.5, so you have 7 dBs difference in the critical 2K mid-range. Like, that's a pretty serious difference. It gets pretty interesting though, because you notice that the creamback will dominate as well. We're looking at like 1.6K, and that's very critical in the human spectrum of hearing. And we're at 101 with the creamback versus 97 on the greenback, so that's a 4 dB difference. Same thing up in the upper registers as well. In the upper mid-range, we're at like 4.7K, that's 105 versus 102, so that's about 3 dBs. And just this whole segment here where it's brighter as well, right around the 6K region. Pretty interesting stuff. And once again, we see massive differences in the extreme top end. 11 kilohertz, 10 to 11, 12, it's the greenback dominating, but we get up higher around 13 to 16K. Wow, the creamback is just destroying it. It's like one speaker isn't necessarily brighter than the other. They highlight different parts of the spectrum, and that's what gives that speaker its character in comparison to the other one. This is the part we need to keep in mind when we're trying to find an interesting guitar sound and look for something a little bit different than we might have been getting beforehand. Now, just to be very clear, this is not some sound guy conspiracy to make you look like an idiot. I'm merely trying to inform you to help you make better choices when you go to buy gear. Check this out. This is the 5150 greenback versus the creamback soloed up. One of these changes is not like the other, and what a shock! The amp isn't making the gigantic tone shift. Now this gets even crazier when we start moving the microphone, because this is what's picking up the signal. This used to be a gigantic pain in the ass to set up, especially if you're working in your own studio by yourself. But fortunately, the Dynamount came along. It's an automated mic stand that you can control from your phone to dial in your tone. You can sit at your sweet spot and tweak to perfection. Okay, now this part really drove me nuts, where the guy said, oh, the microphone really doesn't make all that big a difference, like only 10%. Let me show you what happens when we actually mic up a sound and start moving the mic around. This is all courtesy of the Dynamount. We've got this awesome remote controlled app we're working with right now. Let me show you what happens when we move the mic from the center of the speaker to the outside. Wow, that's fucking crazy. Let's see what happens if we turn it towards the center a bit. Wow. It's almost like it's making a gigantic difference in the tone. Let's take that angle, let's move it across the speaker again. Does that sound like 10% of the sound to you? It sure as hell doesn't to me, that's for sure. Once again, I gotta thank Dynamount for making my job just that much easier. And by checking the measurement, we can visualize what we were hearing. If we look at the center versus the cone, the center of the speaker is the red, the cone is the green, and we can see just the top end just completely starting to drop off, like from, wow, actually from, geez, much more than just the top end. Even the mids start to drop out quite a bit here. Like from about 700 hertz on, and we just see the green line get, you know, just completely dominated by the red line, and that's, you know, in the top end. Wow. I mean, at say 5K, we're looking at, oh geez, about 11 dBs difference just by moving the microphone. By way of comparison, this is what amp versus amp looks like. You tell me, what's the bigger difference? What's almost as important as the speaker is the microphone that you use to record the guitar. In this case, I'm using my new secret weapon mic, a Lewitt 640 Rex. Now, I can't take credit for discovering this. This one goes to John Brown from Monuments. He suggested that I try it out. And what's crazy is that the Rex is actually a dual element kick drum microphone. It has both a dynamic and a condenser capsule, and they're perfectly phase aligned. Now, I've always been a big fan of blending these two type of microphones onto guitar cabs, but Lewitt just made the whole process that much more convenient because you only need one mic stand and you're never out of phase. Now, here's why I've been using the 640 Rex on so many mixes as of late. Check this out. I love how this mic sounds just by itself. Now, if we take away the condensers and just listen to the dynamics, and then this is what the condensers sound like. And all together again once more. Pretty damn cool. Now, if we invert the polarity on two of those capsules, we can hear what's being taken away from the sound. Check it out. That's what happens when we're putting those two capsules together. That part of the sound is being erased, that really unpleasant kind of hollow sound. Now, of course, we can use the faders as a sliding EQ. We can play with the different volume levels and tweak the sound that much more. All really depends on how thick or how thin you want the sound to go. The choice is yours. I like the faders fairly even on this mic, but your mileage may vary. Now, if we pull up the measurements, we can see what's going on. The dynamic is the red, the green is the condenser. And everything looks fairly even, like in the low end and the mid-range and whatnot. This is almost looking like amp versus amp until we start taking a look at the upper mids and the top end. We can see a big divergence going on right at about 2 kilohertz here, where the dynamic is about 4 dBs louder than the condenser. But it gets even weirder as we move along here into the treble end of the spectrum. We can see still, the dynamic being a bit brighter until we get up until the 5 to 6K region. And then we see this huge divergence going on here. And that kind of continues on the further you get into the rest of the top end of the spectrum. We just see these massive divergences going on. So that is a pretty big shift in sound. We can not only hear it, we can measure it too. It seems that in online guitar circles, we tend to form opinions based on the popularity of the person making the claim rather than the evidence provided. If a famous player says something, then it must be true no matter how fucking stupid it is because he said so. We've seen this time and again, whether it be tone wood or the guitar is painted or not. Oh, this pickup sounds great, this one sounds bad. And nobody seems to bother to ask, hey man, can you back any of that up? Because how dare we question the almighty rock god? Somebody can say something, provide zero corroborating evidence, and many will take it at face value and pass on a bad assumption to others. Because if you repeat a falsehood enough, people will believe it. This is called the illusory truth effect. And that's why there's such a huge market for vintage vacuum tubes, and none of them ship with frequency response graphs. Instead of tone examples on websites or any kind of evidence at all, we get utter bullshit statements such as glassy yet mellow clean tones bloom into a fat rich overdrive as you get deeper into the master volume knob. The fuck does that even mean? I guess if you spew complete nonsense and don't bother to claim anything tangible, you can avoid false advertising rules. And guitar players will be gullible enough to waste their money on it. I should know because I was one of them. If you're searching for a new amp, please keep this in mind. Tube amps are variations on a theme. You only start to hear major differences between amps when you throw a solid state design into the mix, like a Sun Beta lead or a Marshall valve state. I did a deep dive on this in the video, What Matters Most with the Guitar Tone, and if you want to check it out, I'll have a link to that at the end of this video. But please keep in mind, the same principle applies. You'll get an even bigger difference once you start changing out cabinets and speakers, even with solid state amps. If you or a friend are considering dropping a lot of money on a new amp, I'd caution you to try new speakers first, because that's what's likely going to give you the biggest impact on your sound for the least amount of money. And I'd like to say this to the caddies jam caves of the world. The only thing that can refute evidence is more evidence. So unless you can back your opinions with something other than hot air, please stop, because you're just encouraging people to waste their money on something they don't need.